Salutations, readers. Welcome back to the Critical Writer channel. My name is Nkechi, and for today, I'll talk about all the books that I read in January 2024. Yes, if you've been here for a while, you will know that I used to do bi-monthly wrap-up videos, but this year around, I've decided to just go 1 month at a time, honestly, especially when I came a little bit closer to the end of the year where I was reading so many books within 2 months. I was just like, this is just a lot of books, and I have a lot of thoughts on each of these books, so I'm just like, oh, find a way to make it more succinct and short and sweet and stuff without being taking so long into it. I'm like, I just cannot. So for now on, I'm just going to do it 1 month at a time. But before I get to all the books that I've read, let me just do some quick stats while I look at my phone here. But also, let's actually talk about January as well, because, January 2024, first month of the year, how did we do, For me, I really thought I was going to do a lot less reading because I pretty much was in a slump for most of the month, honestly. I feel like towards the end, I was really able to, sneak in a few more reads. But yeah, this was actually a struggle of a month for me. But as far as stats, though, so I read about 6 books, which is not a lot, but it's not very little. Honestly, I was really thinking I was only going to read 3 or 4 books this month. But I managed to put out 2 more books. So honestly, 6 is good. I wish it would be better, but 6 is still good. But then I also now as well, like I said in my year in planning for 2024, I am going to talk more about my DNFs and wrap up. So I am not going to tell y'all that I did officially DNF 2 books. Technically, I don't really want to say 3, but really the third book I DNF was more of a soft DNF, and is a book that I decided that I'm going to try again in the next month, which it will be in my Blackathon TBR. You already know that book is, so I'm not going to talk about it here. As far as pages read, I read 1,150 pages. But as far as number of hours listened, 47.87. But it's still a lot of hours, honestly. This was definitely more of an audiobook Kindle month for me. I am curious to see if in February that will change, but January, the start of the year, not a lot of physical reading here. But anyways, let's get into the books that I DNF'd, because these are really much hard DNFs. I do not see myself going back to these books. And unfortunately, they were arcs. So first up, the first book that I DNF'd in the year was Infinity Alchemist by Case and Calendar. I read this in my Winter Wing vlog, which I will link down below. This is a book that comes out February 6th, so it's actually very, very soon. And this is a young adult fantasy novel. It's actually Case and Calendar's young adult fantasy debut, where we follow a character named Ash who wants to be an alchemist but works in a garden for this alchemist university college place, and I think he teams up with a very young professor, which I'm already forgetting the name of. And yeah, honestly, I really talked more about the plot actually of the story in that vlog, so definitely check out the vlog for that. But yeah, I did not get very far into it. I think I got around 21%. It was so not for me. The writing was not it. I really was having a hard time with these characters. It made me this book really made me go, am I too old for young adult? Which honestly, I really don't think I am. But it was in the range of oh, this is not meant for me. This is just way too grating. I just cannot. Even though I'm not really far off from the actual characters' ages here. But nah, the impulsiveness, the lack of self-preservation and forward thinking from Ash was just way too grating. So I just could not. So I'm like, you know what? Forget that. Go away. That's the first DNF of the year, but that's what the second one is. Second DNF was a book called Chrysalis and Requiem by Quentin Lee. This one's actually a self-published book, and it comes out March 16th. So this is a new adult, dark academia, speculative fiction, fantastical thriller kind of thing. Yeah, I'm not really sure what this book was even really about. I didn't even get very far into it either. I don't remember how far I got into it. Maybe it was 5%, 7%. No, wait, I think it was 10%. I remember now. It was 10% of the way through. I could not with this one. But there's just no way. I really did not actually like the writing style at all. And I really was having a hard time with this main character. The main character was so obsessive and even feeling the level of codependent on this one girl here, which look, I'm here for queer people doing some things that, like, you know, like, we should not be doing that, but also just, like, I just didn't get it. Like, I was just not understanding, and I did not have the patience to try to understand by continue on, and also the writing style was not helping. Like, if the writing style was just different, I think I would have pushed through just a little bit further in to see if maybe there was something here, something else to latch onto, but not that really. And also, I really did not like the world here. In fact, I was really confused by it. I know it's only 10% in, but still, I felt really, really confused for like 10% in. But not in the kind of confused that I feel like there'd be a big payoff. I just feel like we're not fully explaining things on what's going on here. So that was frustrating, honestly. Just, I couldn't do it. But hey, if y'all want to check Chrysalis and Requiem or even Infinity Alchemist out, they're coming out pretty soon. Especially Infinity Alchemist is coming out in like next week as I'm recording this. So y'all can at least check it out if y'all want to. Or Chrysalis and Requiem, self-pub author. Y'all can give it a shot if y'all want to at least try to. I tried, didn't work, but hey, maybe y'all will like it more. So I just wish it was more up for me. But yeah, that's pretty much it as far as like my hard DNFs. And then of course I have the reformatory. I'm going to read that for Blackathon, so I'm not going to talk about it here. But yeah, that's pretty much it for as far as like my DNFs. So let's actually just get to the 6 books that I read this month. So the very first book that I read this year, that I also read on my Kindle, was Education and Malice by S.T. Gibson. It's also my Winter Reading vlog, which will be linked down below. This is a dark, sapphic, romantic, historical, paranormal reimagining of Carmilla. And I will have to say, like I said in that vlog, I prefer An Education in Malice over Carmilla. Carmilla was one of the worst books I read last year. I really did not like it. I didn't even get it, honestly, but I was so highly disappointed in the sapphic yearning of all. But I did appreciate it for its vampiric lore. Here, the vampire lore is still there, but really though I really like for the sapphic yearning. Like, I was really, really here for Laura and Carmilla. Carmilla I had to go into, but Laura I really liked what I had. The only thing, my main gripe though with that book, that made it a 3.25 stars, was the fact of the vampiric professor, De La Fontaine. She is pretty much having this very inappropriate student-teacher relationship with Carmilla. It's not to the level of it being like anything sexual or anything, but it is definitely more on like just like inappropriate between a student and teacher, for sure. Which I did actually appreciate St. Gibson's way of writing such a relationship along with the sapphic yearning, but I was really looking for more plot. Like, I am starting to realize that I'm very, very picky regarding character-driven novels, and if there's not enough plot for me to keep intrigued, especially if I'm even if I get a little bit bored by the characters, if there's at least somewhat of an intriguing plot, I can still, like, really enjoy more, but there's just not enough of the characters for me in this book for me to go, like, oh yeah, I really, really loved it as much as, like, A Diary of Blood. Which, by the way, it's not as poetic as A Diary of Blood, but it is still lyrical, so don't come into An Education in Malice thinking that it is poetic like A Diary of Blood, but it is lyrical and atmospheric, though, so definitely still really good. Still recommended, though, for sure, and it does come out February 13th, so it does come out very, very soon, very close to Valentine's Day. So if any of y'all want to read a very dark, sapphic, romantic, historical, paranormal book with some kink, because there is kink as well. So definitely look at content warnings, although the content warnings are provided thanks to St. Gibson. So thank you, St. Gibson, for that. So they are provided. Y'all will get the content warnings ahead in the book. So don't worry about that. But I do recommend it. If you're here for a dark sapphic time, I do recommend An Education in Malice. And then, oh yeah, also for Winterween, I read The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. This is Andrew Joseph White's sophomore novel that I soft DNF'd last year, that I picked up this year. I also read in that Winterween vlog, so check it out down below. I gave this, what did I give it? I think a solid 4 stars. I also was listening to it along via audio. I did really enjoy it. I still like Andrew Joseph White's writing and stuff, and the world here for sure, and the themes. I think my problem was the side characters, because I actually loved Hellfire With Us because of all the side characters for sure, and also the main character and the themes and writing. This one, the side characters weren't really gripping me as much as the first book, unfortunately. So I definitely prefer his debut more than his sophomore novel, but it's still a really good book though, regardless. And so if y'all are here for like a young adult queer historical fantasy horror book, definitely check out The Spirit Bears Its Teeth. For sure. Definitely a really good book for Winterween. So yeah, I'm really glad that I read it. And I wish that y'all were to read it as well. And then I read a book for the 6 Recs by 6 Friends. It's pretty much like 12 Recs by 12 Friends, but I was like, I didn't do well for 12 Recs by 12 Friends, so I'm going to make it a 6. So this is actually a book that was recommended to me by Heather from Kia BookTubes. So I read it on my Kindle because I got it as an ebook from my library, and that is That Time I Got Drunk and Saved a Demon by Kimberly Lemming, which I have heard about this book. I think I heard more about it like last year. I've actually heard about the series more so last year. Now people really loved it, and honestly, I see the hype. I really do. I really enjoyed this. So thank you, Heather, for the recommendation. So if you do not know what this book is about, this is the first book in a fantasy romance series. And in this book, we're following, what was her name? Cinnamon Hot Pepper. I think that's her last name, but I do remember her name at least being Cinnamon. Where she literally gets drunk, and she somehow saves a demon, and Cinnamon and this demon need to work together to pretty much end this tyrannical reign of this one witch empress person who pretty much tricked humans into worshipping her and having the demons pretty much suffer for it. So yeah, I do remember the book providing content warnings ahead of the time, so thankfully the author does put in content warnings. And I think the thing that really surprised me on how much I really enjoyed it was the fact that, I mean, I wasn't really surprised on the fact about saying that light BDSM, honestly, because I'm like, honestly, I wasn't sure how I feel about it, but you know, the way it was handled, I think, was pretty good for someone who doesn't really read a lot of romance. But the one thing though that really made me go, I'm not totally sure if I would really like this, was the fact that it had dubious consent. So I've never come across any romance book with dubious consent at all. This is my first time reading DubCon, and I will have to say I did like how this book approached it. And I think it helped that I was prepared that it had dubious consent, because if I did not know about the dubious consent, I think I really would not like the romance. This is definitely a book that you have to know going in that there'll be dubious consent. And I think the fact that I came in myself like, oh yeah, this is pretty much dubious consent, but there's still something, it's still in regards, again, it's dubious. Like, you know, there's still a consent, but it's pretty dubious. But I'm also just like, okay, I kind of like on how he treats her and stuff. And I can see her being pretty reluctant because of the fact that, you know, he is a demon, you know. But I just really like the romance here between those two. And I also really like the fact that we have an interracial romance, but it's not between a person of color with a white person. You know what I'm saying? It's with a person of color with another person of color. I like that. I'm here for fantasy romance books that feature non-white characters. Okay? I'm here for it. I want the characters of color to be here with the romance. Alright? So, thank you, Heather, for the recommendation. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf. Next up, I read War Girls by Tochi Onyobuchi. I was actually reading this in the middle of my Minnesota Winter Diary video. My very first video diary, actually, series. And if you have not watched it, please check it out down below. But I finally read this. It is actually part of my series TBR. I wanted to read this duology. I've only owned the first book, but I do now need to read the sequel, though. I need the sequel now on my shelf, because I loved War Girls. If you do not know, this is pretty much like a futuristic reimagining-ish of the Biafran War, which is the Nigerian Civil War, if you do not know. And it falls more so on child soldiers. Now, if you do not know about me, is that I'm Nigerian American, specifically Igbo, just like Tochi Onyobuchi. He is also Nigerian American and also Igbo. So for him, this is also a personal story on like how, I think on his mother, I think in the author's note in the back here, he was, and in the acknowledgements as well, he was talking about like his mother and his family and how like their experience regarding the Biafran War. And it very much reminiscent of my own family as well, in regards to the fact that, first of all, we don't really talk about it, at least in my family we don't. And if it is, of course, it's been spoken in Igbo, which I do not speak or understand. But it is so fascinating to see this kind of a history being retold in a futuristic setting. Because I can definitely, I mean, just like how I read anything, like a fantasy reimagining of some sort of point in history. I mean, when I think of fantasy, I do think of a little bit more historical, kind of like in the past, not really futuristic like sci-fi. So it's very interesting to see something from the past, but taking place in the future. I find that so fascinating. And I think Tochi Onyobuchi was a great author to write such a story in regards to war, the consequences of war, and child soldiers, and like PTSD. And yeah, this is a very violent story, and I very much need to read the sequel. I did read this more so via audio than try and read it physical or higher reading it. I do recommend the audiobook, actually. The audiobook was really, really good. And this is actually my very first 5-star book of the year, honestly. Like, this is definitely onto, like, personal favorite. I can see this as being a 5-star series because this is a 5-star book. So, yeah, I'm just really looking forward to reading the sequel, Rebel Sisters, to see the conclusion to the series. But I do also recommend at least reading some sort of background, having some sort of a background knowledge on the Biafran War, because going into this book blind without any knowledge, you're definitely going to be very lost in regards to character motivations and stuff. So have some sort of a background knowledge. I do recommend There Was a Country by Chinua Achebe as like your starting point. But now, after reading War Girls, I definitely want to read more books in regards to Biafran War. And Tojo Nobuchi does provide some authors and some books as well that he has read that has inspired him to write this kind of a story. So yeah, Tojo Nobuchi continues to be an all-time favorite author for me. He continues to prove that for me. And now I'm to show that I really like his young adult. This is my first time ever reading his young adult books, y'all. And I'm so glad that it was War Girls. So now I need to read the sequel now. Now, the next book that I read this month was finally The Liar's Knot by Emmett Carrick. Finally, the sequel to The Mask of Mirrors, the second book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. So, this is a book that I was also reading in that Minnesota Winter Diary as well. So if you're not, check out the video. Please check it out down below. But I will have to say, it's not very much I can really say as far as the plot here. Not because there's very little of it. I mean, there is a plot. It's just that it's not really the main focus, which I am starting to realize that it's not really the main focus of this series either. The main point of this entire series isn't really the plot. It's really actually the characters and the relationships to each other. The plot is really just like the magic that's going on, that's corrupting the city of Nadezhra and stuff. So that's really more in regards to plot. But the real focus here is character. So this is a very character-driven fantasy. Now, like I said with An Education Malice, I did say that I was like, I'm not totally sure if character-driven fantasy or character-driven stories are really for me like that. Or I'm just really, really picky with them. And which I am. But this is actually... Okay, hold up now. Okay, sorry about that. My camera just wanted to start a new clip. But what was I saying? Yeah, so this is very much character-driven, but I started to realize that I really did care for more so with the characters here than I did with An Education in Malice. Probably just because of the fact that I just really like the characters here. I was actually surprised at how much I really did care enough about the characters, because at one point for the story, I was like, so what are we doing in the plot here? Like, what are we doing here? But then it just came to the point, like, you know what? These characters are interesting enough for me that, like, I don't really actually care as much that the fact that there is not as much plot, or the plot is very slow going. And especially in regards to the fact that how these books are titled is because of the pattern deck, which is one of like 3 magic systems in the entire series. And I like how the Mask of Mirrors is pretty much talking about lies, deception, manipulation, because we have Ren, who's a con artist trying to pretend to be a noblewoman, right? So that's the Mask of Mirrors. The Liar's Knot is a different kind of story, where in the sense that we are following these characters where they have to learn to trust each other. Because as I was reading this, I was like, wait, what does the Liar's Knot mean in this pattern deck? What does that mean? And the Liar's Knot pretty much means it's about trust. And I think that makes sense for this entire book here in regards to the characters, but also for me regarding the story, is that I had to trust the authors that they know what they're doing with these characters and what we're going to do with this plot and the rest of the series here. I had to trust on what they were going to do, just like these characters had to trust each other, especially with the fact that at this point in the story, Ren is balancing so much in regards to her lies and her masks that's just become too much. And we're even seeing more as well with, like, we're learning more about the Rook as well with the case stuff, and I'm not going to say who it is, but I will have to say I was shocked. I was shocked when I found out, and it was very interesting to see on how the relationship that starts to form between certain characters, that I'm just like, okay, you know what, I'm here for it. Like, I'm here for it. And then seeing, like, this other character here, and how, like, I don't know, y'all, this was just so fascinating. And I think I remember my Minnesota Winter Diary vlog, I was talking about, like, Derasi Varco and comparing him to Cass, and I will just say, Derasi Varco truly is like Cass, but, like, the way that I wish Cass was. Then again, granted, though, Cass was, like, a young adult protagonist, and then Derasi Varco is an adult character, so, like, he's different. But the way that in my mind, I believe Derasi Varco is aromantic. He's at least in the aro spectrum, okay? If you read the series, confirm or deny, but I personally believe, I headcanon him as, like, being aromantic of some sort, honestly, because the way that this man just be going on regarding, like, people, but also, like, friendships as well, I'm just like, you know what? bro, I kind of like you. And yeah, I just gave this book, what is it? I think I gave this 4.5 stars. I really enjoy this. I really love this way more than like The Mask and Mirrors, truly. Now, the last but not least book that I read this month that I read on my Kindle was another arc. Okay, sorry y'all. I got distracted. My mom was showing me some braids. So what was I talking about? I think I was going to talk about the E arc. Yeah, the last book that I read that I literally finished this morning. Like I'm telling y'all, I woke up, I said I'm going to read this while I'm brushing my teeth, and then I finished it like when I was like 5 minutes away from like leaving to go to work this morning. So yeah, I wanted to finish this E arc right away, but I did read and finish Court of Wanderers by Rin Chiapeko. It's the sequel and final book in the Reaper duology. So the sequel to Silver and Nightfall, Court of Wanderers, comes out April 2nd. So this is the continuation of the series where we follow Remy, Julien, and Xiaodan, who are trying to pretty much just work together. They're also in a throuple. They're in a throuple. Two of them are vampires, and Remy is... There are some rumors regarding that he's probably part vampire. Is that true? Who even knows? You gotta read the books to know. They work together to pretty much defeat this vampiric empress lady. Yeah, I'm not gonna say too much on the plot, honestly, because it's way too spoilery if you have not read Silver and Nightfall, but I did have a fun time with this. I want to say, I was a little bit disappointed. I think I gave Silver and Nightfall 4 stars. I read it for the Asian Readathon. And then now, I think I gave this book 3.75 stars. It's not that much of the downgrade from like the first book, honestly. Like, I did really like this one. My problem, I think, was the pacing. Because I felt like we were really slow and meandering the first third, 40% of the way. And we didn't get anywhere until like around that 40% mark. And then we finally had to start doing shit in the plot. And then we went way too fast. And like the last 70%, like the last third of the way through, it was just going way too fast. And I'm just like, what the heck are we doing here? Like, I didn't really understand. I was like, why are we going so fast? Like, the pacing did not make any sense to me. It was not consistent. And I really wish it was consistent. Especially with how long the book was. Like, it's over 500 pages. And I'm just like, I feel like we could have made it shorter. But nonetheless, with all my complaints, I did have a good time with it. And I did like kind of how this was a lot more emotional read. Like, tonally, I will say Silver and Nightfall was a lot more darker of a story. But this one it still had this like horror stuff. It's still pretty dark, but like I felt like there was more of this emotional journey with Remy in regards to his relationships between, you know, his vampiric lovers, but also with his parents as well, especially his dad. I wish there was a little bit more, I won't say focus, but just maybe a little bit more emphasis on like his relationship with his parents a little bit more. I felt like the balance between that was not there, but then again, I feel like it was more focusing on Remy and his lovers anyways than his parents. I think his parents was just more of a side bonus, I guess, for the story. But I really liked it, honestly. I really did like this one. I just was disappointed on more of the pacing and a little bit on the writing. But yeah, this is definitely a series I recommend. I do recommend this duology. It was a fun time. But anyways, that is pretty much it, honestly. So these are all the books that I read in the month of January, including my Kindle here for all the ebooks. So yeah, these are all 6 books that I've read in the month of January. So all in all, despite the fact that I was in a reading slump and I was really struggling to finish reading books for most of the month, I love to say it was actually pretty much a success quality-wise, especially with an average rating of 4.19. So honestly, all things considered, I actually did pretty good for the month of January, honestly, and I'm very much satisfied with that. I do hope that February treats me well. We shall see, though, as far as not only just quantity, but really on quality. But pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much it for January. So let me know in the comments down below, how was y'all's January, reading life-wise? Were y'all in a reading slump? Did y'all got introduced to 2024 with a reading slump? I know a few people have, but I also know a few people, too, were also got into really well with reads. So let me know down in the comments what you read, favorite book of the month, least favorite book of the month. But anyways, thank you all for coming onto this video, and I hope to see you all in my next one. Bye.